like to go ahead and make your way up to your chair. Today our topic of discussion is setting goals and managing your career. And one of the things we wanted to do is combine efforts with the mentoring group. It's performance review time, and so it is very timely to have this discussion. What does it mean to set goals and to manage your career? I believe that setting goals is really important because it helps you know where you're going. It also helps you to know that you've arrived and that you've accomplished something. Goals should be SMART. We hear about this all the time, right? That they should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Time-bound means you set your perimeters and how long it will take. Managing your career. When I did training sessions with Erica last year, one of the common things that we heard from training employees and managers was that employees felt that their manager should help guide and direct them. They're the experts and should help know the path that they should go. Then we heard from managers that they felt they should hear from the employee where they want to go. So really, it is mutually a partnership in how to get there. The employee should have their ideas how they want to grow and continue forward and where do they want their career to go, and managers should be able to take that cue and help them get there. So it really is a partnership, but at the end of the day, we have to manage our own career. With that said, I'm going to introduce our panelists very quickly. We are going to have, then I will come back to each one of them. They will have 4 to 5 minutes to share their perspective, their stories, their experiences on setting goals, managing your career. Then I will give a summary. I will also open it up for question and answers. So be thinking about your question that you would like to ask, and then I will bring the panel discussion to a conclusion. So first I'd like to introduce Dustin Weekesser. He is an associate in the hospitality group. Ignace Borshik is a VP in specialty retail. Sarah Kimes is an AVP in the environment studio. And Charlie Dodson is an AVP in department stores. And Emily Drake is an AVP in planning and urban design group. Thank you so much for being a part of the panel discussion. And so I'd like to first start off with Dustin. Quick introduction about Dustin is he started with RTKL in 2007. He's a member of the hospitality and commercial sector group. He's currently a design advocate. He didn't say this, but I threw this in there. He is a traveler extraordinaire. I've told him many times I've lived vicariously through his traveling experiences. He has worked on many iconic projects around the world, and he really enjoys drawing, sketching, and does very well at it. So help me welcome Dustin.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm here to talk about my career experiences, and again, they're my experiences, and so hopefully you can take bits and pieces from them and kind of use them to help guide your careers. And so when I started 10 years ago here at Callison RTKL, one of the main things that I wanted to start off with was getting to know my colleagues and employees, and that's something that I've kept on with throughout the years. One of the main things that I think really helps people in their careers is just getting to know people that you work with specifically, but also the other people that are in the office. Because as the office grows, as you grow in your career, the people that you're working with will soon become the other managers and other VPs. I've had the experience to work with a number of people over the years, a lot of which are no longer here in the office. Many of them have moved on to be VPs in other offices, there's Todd Lundgren, who's a director in London, and Harold, who's a director in by Ben, who's a director in Shanghai. And so all these people that I've had the experience of working with and was able to build relationships with here in our office are now moving on to other offices. And that has allowed me to continue working with them. They've known that I've been able to be successful in what I've been doing with them in the past, and so they've wanted me to continue helping them out in the future. And so I think that getting to know, one, your managers is really important. And a lot of the times I've taken the opportunity myself to ask them out for lunches, to just go into their office if I've seen them just kind of walking around all day, so you kind of can tell they're not really that busy. And just trying to get to know them a little bit better, because there's no other way. Otherwise, if you're just in your own sector, you're only going to be working through 5, 6 people, and you're not really going to have the opportunity to get to know the broader office. In addition to that, I've tried to get involved with other office initiatives. There was Retrospect that's been around for a number of years, and a number of other ones. Through those, I've been able to get to know Brendan and Hernan, so it's a couple of my really good friends in the office, and be able to get to know other people in other sectors. Again, I mean, we have people from healthcare that are working down in the commercial group now. A lot of them have already gotten to know past years just because of those types of experiences of working with other sectors that aren't really the ones that I typically do day to day. And I think that's a key thing in just growing your career, is just being able to get to know others. Another thing is, of course, taking responsibility for your work and being able to ensure that you're doing good work and being someone that is dependable. And so that's something I've always put a strong importance on, making sure that when people give me tasks, I do a good job, so that when people that I don't typically work with, if I get the opportunity to work with them once or twice, they know that I'm able to successfully get what they need done and get it done well. And so if you don't have that internal drive to do that, no one's really going to be coming back for you. It's going to hurt your career growth. And then in terms of the goal settings and things, I mean, the way I've always viewed it is no one's really going to be looking after my career path as well as I can. And so while other people in the office may be willing to offer advice and suggestions, they're doing the same thing. They're looking over their own career path and how they can continue to grow and improve their standing in the firm, and be able to provide for their families. And so I've always been trying really hard to take a proactive approach to that. I remember a number of years ago when I was initially promoted from, at that time it was staff to designer. There was a significant decrease in my raise because I had been working a ton of overtime for the years previous. And so I actually wrote a long letter, and I sent it to a number of people in the office and described with graphs and everything what it meant that I was getting promoted with basically a very minimal raise. But it was, Christina was one of the recipients of that. But I realized that there's no one else was really going to be looking after this type of stuff besides myself. And so I made the effort to schedule a meeting with people and talk about different things, because if I didn't, they're just going to go through their reviews and continue moving forward. And so I think being able to look at where you want to go and make sure that you have a path to get there, and getting to know people and making sure you're working hard is fairly important.
Thank you, Dustin. Next, I'd like to introduce Ignaz. He's an award-winning designer of the retail experience, and his background is in visual merchandising, store planning, design, graphics, and creation, art curation and collection, with innovation, appreciation, and application of technologies. Shall I go on? Ignaz has 41 years of experience in the design industry and has established a reputation for innovative design. Many of you may know, but some of you may not, he comes to us prior working with Neiman Marcus. And if you haven't had the opportunity, this is a wonderful portfolio to look at the end of the meeting if you'd like to peruse through it. I was amazed when I got to see it. A lot of great work in here, so welcome.
Thank you. All right, it's great to be with you all today. Excuse me, I made notes, and you can tell I'm the senior. I handwrite mine. His are on his phone, so. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is goal setting. As I gave some very serious thought to this, I wanted to try to share things with you that were important to me in my career. And to do that in 4 or 5 minutes is hard, so I'm going to try to stick to my script. So the first thing I think is important in goal setting is setting realistic goals, both short and long-term goals. I set my short-term goals were 2 to 5 years, my long-term goals were 5 to 10, and it was a sliding scale, and it just continued to grow and move. I also targeted where I thought I wanted to be as far as the position and even the firm or company I worked with. And the reason I had to do that was to get to either the position or the firm was going to take a certain skill set, knowledge, experience. And so by knowing that, you can start to really define your career path as opposed to something that has a Y in the road every time you turn. You can start to bypass the turnoffs and know exactly where you're going. The other thing I found early was set yourself apart. You're in competition with a lot of people, and that's going to continue to grow. It might dwindle as you kind of move up the corporate ladder, but trust me, there's somebody else that's going to want that job. So how do you set yourself apart? Through things like contribution, skills, knowledge, your attitude, and yes, even the way you dress and present yourself are ways to set yourself apart. People do take notice. Quality of work speaks a lot, but personal appearance also goes a long way as well. Be the one to say yes. Typically, when you're working in a team or your manager is assigning you to a project, they know why things can't get done. So it doesn't have to be reiterated at that point. I learned early that if you say yes and you come to the table very quickly with creative problem solving, you're going to be invited back to the table again. Because when people decide who they want on teams, they're typically going to find the ones that are going to get it done. I had a saying that I loved, I still use it today, think like water. And I've got a lot of people saying, what does that mean, Ignaz? Water finds its way around everything. There's almost nothing that you can do to obstruct water from finding its way around. And it was kind of fun as I mentored people like Neiman Marcus when they grew up. They would use that in meetings when they came across something difficult. They'd say, I'm thinking like water, Ignaz. And I really enjoyed hearing that because to me, it told me that they were going to come to the table with a good solution. Learn from your situations, good and bad. In my career, I've had amazing opportunities. I've worked for amazing people. And in my career, I've worked for people that I would just simply go bust. But what I learned, and it took me a while, and I'm just going to share this with you, a bad experience is actually more valuable than a good one I found. And the reason I say that is we kind of gloat in our success. We go home, we reward ourselves with a cocktail or a slice of chocolate cake. But a bad experience really kind of lingers with you, and you spend a lot of time thinking about it. And so what I learned was to take a bad experience and turn it around and make it a good one. Well, how do you do that? You'll be in a position one day when you can probably prevent someone from feeling the way you did as a leader. So making people feel good is very important, but also learning how to make people not feel bad is equally as important. Develop a leadership style. I looked at mentors, whether they were in my industry or not. I looked at people and I looked at their qualities. An example I'm going to give right now, Elon Musk. To me, an amazing individual. He is a true visionary. And then I read his book. I don't know if any of you have read the book. If you haven't, if you're like me, I read a page, I was like, this man's amazing. I want to be like him. I read the next page, I put the book down, I said, I'm not going to pick it up again. And I'll tell you why. As much of a visionary as he is, he did not respect his team and his people. He berated an employee for taking a day off because his wife had a baby. That's not the kind of leader I like to see. But the good news is you don't have to adopt all of his habits. Take the good ones, take the ones that work. And the visionary part is what stuck with me. And then the last one I'm going to impart on you is be patient. I can't tell you how often people grow impatient. And even like watching you when I said the 2 to 5, 5 to 10. When I said 5 to 10, I could see people like 10 years. Are you kidding me? The good news about most of you sitting in the audience is that time is on your side. It's a valuable commodity, but it's one that has to be put to good use. So you have that time, and it's okay to make a mistake. Do not be afraid to make a mistake. And I encourage you to make mistakes, because that's really how you're going to grow. In your position, whether you become a leader of people or just a manager of your own time and yourself.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Sarah. She has been with the firm for 5 years. I actually was a part of her transition to the firm. She come from the Richards Group, and she currently leads the Environment Studio here in Dallas. Her team works on research, branding, signage, and wayfinding. One thing I'd like to add about Sarah, she was a part of our original group with Toastmasters, and I've been able to watch her grow. And that was one of the great things about Toastmasters, is getting to watch your colleagues overcome their obstacles, their crutches, and be able to flourish. And with Sarah, we got to see that she's an advocate of women across the firm, and she helps build great environments. So help me welcome Sarah Grimes.
You know, it's interesting to be part of a goal-setting panel because I actually do not consider myself someone who sets very tactical goals. If someone asks me where am I going to be 1 year from now, I don't think that there's a direct path from A to B. I find that my path is a little bit more squiggly, and sometimes opportunities are presented and I'm not sure which way to go. So for me, it's about a mindset that I approach both my career and my personal life with versus I know exactly where I'm going. Because I find there have been times where I thought I was going one direction and then I was disappointed that it didn't quite work out, and then I ended up happy because it didn't quite work out. So most of the things I've learned about my behaviors and mindset, I've learned because I've screwed up and someone has yelled at me at some point. So when Ignaz was talking about don't be afraid to make mistakes, most of my career-defining behaviors have been because I've made mistakes. I actually started my career in the very interesting world of sexually transmitted diseases. So I worked on the advertising for Valtrex, which is a genital herpes drug. So that's where I started my career. I worked in New York, and I don't know if anybody in the room has worked in New York, but gosh, there are some mean people working in New York. So I showed up to a meeting. This was probably my first week on the job. I didn't really know what the meeting was about. I just figured, oh, I've been invited, I'm just gonna go. And I remember someone asking me a question about, the product or the company, and I just sort of shrugged. I thought, okay, I'm here in this meeting, you guys asked me to be here, you guys tell me. And so from that, and then I got, pretty much yelled at and admonished. I think they actually told me to leave. Like, it was a very, terrifying situation. But what I did learn is that it doesn't take much to show up to a meeting prepared and understanding why you're there, doing the research. That doesn't take brilliance. All it takes is some time. And so to set yourself apart from everybody in the room, or even just to make sure you're on par with everybody in the room, make sure you're showing up prepared. I always find if I'm, maybe the least talented person in the room, I'm not a designer, I'm not an architect, or I don't know as much about the project. If I show up to the room prepared and understanding more about the location, more about the people, more about this, then I'm bringing something to the room that nobody else has. The other thing I would take away, which is, in general, I think an approach that a lot of people in the office already do, because I see it in our meetings on a regular basis, but to make sure that your work is a reflection of who you are. Another time that I got yelled at was at my second job in New York, and this is when I was working on Johnson & Johnson products, advertising and branding for them, and I showed up to a meeting with a PowerPoint that had a couple of spelling errors in it. Some of the fonts were kind of different, and I thought the work was really great. I thought the insights were great. I was super proud of this PowerPoint. I worked a long time on it, but what this woman told me as I'm presenting it, she said, turn it off, turn it off. She said, I can't figure out what the ideas are because I'm so distracted by the spelling errors and the duplicate fonts. And I thought, but the ideas in here are so great. Why can't, I don't understand. And now I understand that work was a reflection of who I was. People can't get past sort of the errors and the mistakes, even if you've got something brilliant in there. So I want to make sure that I show up every time to a meeting with work that reflects who I am as a person. And really, the last thing I want to talk about, which you can see that I've attempted all throughout my career, is that don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail, be brave. Walk into a meeting that maybe you feel out of your comfort zone in. And this goes back to Ignaz's perspective of saying yes. I think for me, coming to work at an architecture firm was a little bit scary for me. I mean, and I've told several people, I bought the book Architecture for Dummies, and I actually read Architecture for Dummies because I didn't even know any of the terminology, but I thought it sounded really interesting, and I thought it sounded different, and I wanted to be brave and step out of my comfort zone of consumer branding into branding for the built environment. And I would say I take that approach on a regular basis. If someone asks, hey Sarah, can your team do this? I always say yes. I don't know if we can, we'll figure it out. I mean, I'm sure at some point we have to just jump in the water and see if we can make it happen and not be afraid to fail, because otherwise you're not growing. So I don't know if I'm one of those people that sets, this is my exact goal and these are the steps I'm going to take to get to that goal. But I think if you take that general approach and general mindset of not being afraid to fail, showing up prepared, doing your research, and just making sure your work is a reflection of who you are, I think that you'll continue to grow and meet those goals, whatever they may end up being.
Thank you, Sarah. Charlie. What can I say about Charlie? I was always intrigued when I first came to RTKL, down California RTKL. There was this event, this golf event. It's called Dodson Day. It was named after Charlie, and I will let Charlie tell the story if he so chooses. But he was with RTKL for 14 years, and after that he was recruited to do department stores work. Then he returned for a little bit of a year, if I'm correct, okay? Then he started his own practice. That's an adventure in and of itself. And he did that for 13 years, and then in 2014, he ended up at Callison, and then made his full circle back to RTKL with Callison RTKL. So help me welcome Charlie Dodson.
Thank you, Christina. I really came into this yesterday wondering what I was going to talk about, and like Sarah, I'm not a big goal setter. Throughout my career, I've found that the one thing that I strive to do is do what I enjoy, and that is I let the work that I do, the projects that I work on, I get into and I really enjoy, and I find that I go home at night, I relax for a little while, go to bed, and I dream about them and work on projects in my sleep. And that's how I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, is that, when I wake up in the morning, I feel like I've worked all night. A lot of times I have. And that's not a bad thing. If you enjoy what you're doing, it leads you a long way in your career. When I came to RTKL the first time in 1984, I had just been let go of the workflow, the cycle of the work was in a downturn, and I had interviewed with everybody in town right before Thanksgiving, and I get a call at 7 o'clock at night from David Brockman, who was the vice president here at RTKL. And David said, I have a project that I can hire you for, but it's only good for the duration of this project. We don't typically hire people for projects, but this time, since you need a job, we'll hire you, but we can't guarantee anything when the project's over. Well, 5 years later, I charged my first hour to a second project. We had been through a downturn, an upturn, and we're in another slight downturn. So, it was happenstance. I knew some people here and was able to come and be part of a team. We moved several times in that period. But I was able to do work that I enjoyed, and fortunately, because we redid the same project 3 times. But that led to, career advancement in the office, and in this office over the period of years, until I was recruited away by Robert Young, which is a firm that eventually became David Caskey's firm, which was eventually bought by Callison, which brought me back into the fold. So the point there is that the architectural community is wide and it's broad, but it's not very wide. And you're really close to the people that you work with today, you will work with when you go your separate paths, you will end up working with them again. Like I said, what I found that throughout my career, I've been able to do the things that I enjoyed doing. When I left, I went to a better place for me, and it was fun. You know, I talked to Lance the other day, and I mentioned to Lance that when he announced his retirement, he and I kind of grew up here. And when I left, I never wanted this firm to be, you know, I never wished ill on this firm or anybody that was here. I just had different requirements for myself, and I went and pursued those. So for me, I've seen some of the people that, like Lance, Todd, Harold, all the people that Dustin talked about, I work with, and a lot of them from their infancy in the company. Seeing those people advance and move on and do things that they enjoy doing is very rewarding, and I always wish them well, but I felt at one point that I needed to go out and do my own thing. And in doing that, you understand the work that you've done and the breadth of work that you've done is important, but it doesn't feed you in the going forward, so you have to get out and attack the architectural world in a different manner. And in doing that, I found that that's really not what I did like doing. It was more of a chore than, like I said, doing what you like. So that's why I find for myself being back in a large firm was much better than having my own firm. Yes, I could take off in the afternoon, I could do all those things, but it's nice having, I'm not a marketing person, and I really enjoy having the guys along the glass wall doing the marketing and being out, taking care of that part of the business, and I can focus again on the things that I like to do.
Thank you, Charlie. No elaboration on Godson Day?
Just join next year.
Well, first off, everybody should come play.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. Dotson Day started, we were in a period of a lot of overtime. We were working 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, to the point that the firm literally paid everybody overtime, all the way up the scale. And I went to Joe Stalvin, who was the manager of the Dallas office at that time, and I said, Joe, we want to take off a day and go play golf. And he thought about it for a little while and gave us permission to literally take a half day off and work the time, and it became a regular event that we did, while I was here for about 10 or 12 years, and then after that, I understand it carried on for a long time.
It did.
And we're back doing it again.
Awesome, thank you. One quick mention that Charlie touched on. I don't know how many of you know, but Lance Josel started as an intern in the firm and went all the way through to CEO. Same firm, 40 years. So that's a really good testament of directing your career, and I think that's a pretty big statement. But next I'd like to introduce Emily Drake. She has 13 years experience in landscape, architecture, and planning. 4 years prior to this, she was in theater, working with all types of creative people and helping them to create magic. I love that. Now she has a 2-year-old that helps create magic in her life. So help me welcome Emily Drake.
Thank you, Christina. So, this is about setting goals in your career and how you move up in the world. And like Sarah, I never really made a set career path for myself. But there were a few little things, maybe tidbits of information that you guys might want to have or might take from my experience. One of the biggest things, and this kind of relates back to you, some of the things you said, Charlie, and you as well, Ignaz, is that I encourage all of you to sit down sometime in the next few days write down what it is in your life, not just at work, but what you value most in your life. And then identify from that list what your highest priorities are. Because out of that, you're going to be able to understand your life as a whole a little bit better and how you fit work into that and create better balance. And then from there, how do you define success within those boundaries? Do you define success as becoming a VP, or is it okay that you're a senior associate but you have really great work-life balance and you have a lot of responsibility and you have a lot of creative projects? Not everybody in this world is cut out to be a VP or an AVP. Everybody needs to recognize personally what it is they want that to be in their life. And that might involve moving or changing around, creating those or finding those new experiences for yourself. At the bottom of my list, every single one of us has talked about having no fear. That's really the biggest thing, is don't be afraid to make changes in your life. Don't be afraid if changes come your way, to meet those head on. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the actual goals themselves. We're coming up on review time. We all have to set goals. It's something that I've never really done. We kind of have to do it for this process, but don't be puny about your goals. Set goals that are beyond your reach, you think are beyond your reach right now. I have in the past done many marathons, and so on a yearly basis I would have a goal of running a marathon, or some years it was running 3 marathons, some years it was running half marathons. But it's something that you can always set your mind to do, and it's challenging. You're pushing your body beyond what you think it can do, but you always seem to be able to do it in the end. So even though you think this goal that you've set is beyond your reach, say you want to start writing a blog for related to some subject on the internet, right? So you might think, I've never written a blog before. How do I even go about doing this? But it's a goal that you've put out there that's beyond your current reach, and it gives you something to shoot for beyond what you're doing. Don't set puny goals, okay? And related to that, one of the things I did do early in my career was, I wouldn't call it goals, but I started on 101 things I would like to do before I die, right? I'm in my early 20s at this point. Why am I writing this list? But I've since lost the list. But I remember, I only got to number 60. It's a hard list to write. I encourage all of you to try to do it. There were very specific things on that list that I still remember, though. And one of those things was doing an Ironman. You should be specific about this list, though, because I have attempted 3 Ironmen and not been successful. I should have put finish an Ironman on this list. It's amazing how those things come back to you, and you think to yourself, oh, I never really thought I was going to have a library of books, but I put it like simple things like that. I never thought I was going to adopt my first kid before I was 40, things like that. But they're things that come back to your life, and it all relates back to how what you value most in your life as well. And then I think the only other thing I have on my list, and I don't have a yellow card, is align yourself with people that share your same values. Ignos talked about being inspired by people even though maybe they don't share your same values, and that's fine. But from the standpoint of where you want to be in life, it makes all the difference in the world to have people that support you and that hold you up, that align with those same principles and those same values. Thank you, Emily.
Because part of the agreement we have in Toastmasters is we stay on time, we have time for about 1 or 2 questions, but I would encourage you after the session, if something that one of the panelists said resonated with you, please find them afterwards and get more information. Then I will do a summary and we'll close this part of the meeting out. Did anyone have any questions that they would like to bring forward? Delana?
So I heard Dustin answer
answered this, but I want to make sure everybody else, because I know this gets lost in the shuffle, and I want to make sure that everybody really understands the importance of it. So, in your opinion, when you're having these discussions with your manager, whose responsibility would you say it is for taking charge of your career and goal setting?
Anyone? I've got the microphone, I'll just speak real quick. I think it goes both ways, honestly, but it is your career. And so you need to, I'm a manager, right? And I think what you were saying, it kind of goes both ways, is I need help doing that, the manager expects you to do it. But it comes back to what you define success as, I think, is, look, you can tell your manager, I want to be here, but I don't know how to get there. I've done this and this and this, but I need your help getting to that point. But what we look for is we want you to have that initiative to say, I want to be there, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. We're here to help you, but we don't necessarily know what it is you want out of your career.
I mean, I think for me, the question that I always ask is, what is it you want to do, and what can I do to support you? What can I do? Am I making things easier right now? Am I making things harder? If it's a behavior change on my end, I'm totally open to doing it, but I want to know where it is you want to go, and then we can brainstorm together about how we can get there.
I agree with all that. It's in your control, but very importantly, be sure you share those goals with your managers. I cannot tell you how many individuals I've spoken to that have come to me disappointed in where they are, and then they explain to me what they wanted to do, and the first question I ask is, who did you tell? And when you get the blank stare, you know that they didn't do that. I think one of the things that, we all kind of talked about this, but we didn't use the word communication, is going to be critical.
Real quick, I did say how I have tried to foster relationships with all my managers, and that was also so that when things come up throughout the year about where I want to be or what I want to do, I was comfortable in going and speaking with them. Yeah, I didn't try to make it a point to only have these conversations at review time, but I tried to make sure that as things came up, I felt comfortable going to my manager or my VP or even my VP's VP in some situations and talk to them about things that were of concern.
Thank you, everyone. In closing, I'm going to summarize really quick the points that I felt were covered, and that is build relationships, do a good job, say yes, think like water, short-term, long-term goal setting, turn around a bad experience, make mistakes. What's your mindset? Set yourself apart. Be prepared. Your work is a reflection of you. Be brave. Do what you enjoy. What is it that you value the most? How do you define success? And set goals beyond your